Global happenings today. We communicate. We analyze global news. Stay tuned.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to our channel. Right now, as we speak, everybody understand the fact that Fubara, the suspended governor in Rivers State, is enjoying a great level of immunity that has been imposed upon him by virtue of the strength of the Nigerian constitution. But for his supporters, his appointees and allies, they do not enjoy the same. And they have one of such persons that decided to defend himself against any form of harassment is none other person than his chief of staff. And this is the move he has taken to ensure that not only does he defend himself, he doesn't get any form of harassment from Yesomike's camp. To make matters very interesting, Nigerians have decided to take Bola Ahmed Tinubu's state of emergency to the national level, international level, dragging the most powerful president, I'm talking about Donald Trump, the US president, into this matter. How it will fare afterwards, we have no idea. I'm going to give you full details on that as well. But before we go into the news proper, kindly subscribe to our channel. Let's start with what Edison Ehie have done. Now, according to the news, the Rivers State High Court, sitting in Port Harcourt, has issued an order restraining the security agencies, including the police and the Department of State Services, DSS, from arresting the suspended chief of staff to the suspended governor Siminalayi Fubara, that's Edison Ehie. Now, report has it that order was granted by Justice IPC Igwe in response to a motion filed by Ahei, who is the claimant in the case. Other defendants in the suit include Inspector General of Police (IGP), the Director General of the DSS, the State Director of DSS, and the Police Service Commission (PSC). Justice Igwe ruled that an interim injunction be issued preventing the defendant or their agent from inviting, arresting, or detaining Ahei in connection with the alleged arson that the Rivers State House of Assembly, which occurred on March 29, 2023. This follows statement made on or around March 27, 2025 by the former head of service of Rivers State, Judge Whitehouse, or any other individual. Now, the court further instructed that the right and accompanying processes be marked as a concurrent right for service outside the jurisdiction, specifically to the Federal Capital Territory (FCT) Abuja. Additionally, the court ordered all parties involved to maintain the status quo until the determination of the motion on notice for an interlocutory injunction. The judge directed that both parties maintain the status quo as of March 30th, 2025 until the next hearing. The court also required the claimant, Ahei, to enter into a 2 million naira indemnity bond promising to compensate the defendant should the substantive motion be ruled as frivolous. The judge adjourned the substantive case to April 30th, 2025 for further consideration of the motion on notice for interlocutory injunction. This marks a temporary legal victory for Ahei as the legal proceedings begins. Of course, let's find out what Nigerians have intention of doing in some few hours to come. A group of concerned Nigerian activists in the United States has perfected plans to stage a protest at the White House in response to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's imposition of emergency rule in Rivers State. The activists converging under the aegis of Democratic Movement (DM) aim to use the demonstration to reverse the state of emergency in Rivers State and reinstate the suspended governor Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy Ngozi Odu, and members of the State House of Assembly. Now, according to Cosmos Collins Archive, the group president, the protest seeks to draw global attention to what the coalition describes as a direct assault on democracy and the will of the people. Speaking in the statement as of some few hours ago, Ahei affirmed that we cannot sit back while an elected governor is removed, an entire legislature is suspended, and an unelected administrator is imposed. These are dangerous precedents that threaten Nigeria's democracy. The protest scheduled to take place in Washington, D.C. will see demonstrators march towards the White House and the U.S. Department of State to submit petitions demanding international intervention. The pro-democracy movement is also seeking the intervention of the U.S. President Donald Trump and global leaders, including the United Nations and the African Union, to reverse the suspension of a democratic rule in Rivers State. To reverse the suspension of democratic rule in Rivers State, and the activists appealed to the international community to take notice of what they describe as a blatant attack on democratic governance in Nigeria. The world needs to see what is happening in Rivers State. A democratically elected government has been suspended under the guise of emergency rule. We are urging President Donald Trump to engage with Nigerian authorities and call for the immediate restoration of constitutional order. The president must understand that his actions could lead to serious diplomatic consequences. This move is a step towards dictatorship, and Nigeria risks facing international sanctions if democratic principles are not respected. Achieve 1. Now, the demonstration is expected to draw attention of Nigerians in the diaspora, civil rights activists, and supporters of democracy who share concerns about governance in Nigeria. Now, this is getting interesting. We all know that if it was to be Bola Ahmed Tinubu in his time and reign, he would do even work. He would do even bigger and better than this. In his days when the NADECO, when he was one of the frontiers of NADECO, he did literally everything during the military rule. He insisted that Nigeria must go back to democratic rule, must go become democratic. The military era is long gone. Other nations of the world are embracing democracy, and Nigeria should, in all honesty, do the same. When he was the governor of Lagos State, of course, when Olusegun Obasanjo tried, to do one or two things against their allocation in Lagos State, he vehemently rejected it, and he won his case. And I think through the instrumentation of even the former vice president of Nigeria, then I think was his ally. But right now, one would wonder why the very person who fought very strongly for democracy is not tactically, I will use the word tactically, because he's saying that is there. If Nigerians speak forth, the presidency via their media presence will say no, that Fubara is still the governor of Rivers State, only stands suspended, but yet things are happening. Just like Professor Dinkalo, a professor of law, said some few hours ago. He said now that the Supreme Court, or rather now that the sole administrator have decided to present his budget, he was wondering, is it going to be to the National Assembly? And if it is so, what legislative arm is he using? Is he going to be using the National Assembly? And what legislature would he be using to make policies? Now he'll be working directly with the National Assembly. Is that not the same National Assembly that should have waded in when this matter was going on, when the likes of Martin Ehie refused to receive budget, a 2025 budget from Fubara? Shouldn't they have stepped in by virtue of the Nigerian Constitution and said, look, since you guys do not want to accept the budget being presented by the governor of Rivers State, let's step in and let's see if his budget makes sense. We will approve it if it makes a lot of sense, and if not, we'll tell him to adjust one or two things. They didn't, they kept quiet, but now there were a lot of things that just definitely not making much sense. But then again, this is politics in Nigeria, and that's what we expect, and that's what we'll wrap it up. Let's hope, would there be a significant difference if Nigerians march to White House? Don't forget, Nigeria is a sovereign state. But then again, we all know the damages. We all know what it will do to our national, international image. I just hope that the president will look into this very quickly. That's going to wrap it up. Let's put in